I was 42 and I was about to have the best airplane ride. 5 hours, no responsibilities, just me and a glass of wine and a rom-com. That's when it happened. A very friendly, talkative man started walking straight towards me. Please don't sit here, please don't sit here. He sat down beside me. My dream plane vacation gone. I smiled politely and then I did everything I could to casually not be rude. I put my earbuds in, my eyes were on the screen, and my body was angled towards the window. I had forgotten something. I had forgotten my calling. For years when people asked me what I was called to, I thought they were asking me about a job. We've been taught to connect calling with success, financial success, personal success, relational success, find the right career, build something significant, discover your purpose, make an impact. But what if we've been asking the wrong question? Because researchers tell us that purpose actually matters. A major study of almost 500,000 people across 25 samples of Europe and Asia and beyond, up to 32 years of data. And people with a stronger sense of purpose were less likely to die earlier. Other research connects purpose with life satisfaction. Purpose matters, but here's the thing. We maybe are looking for it in the wrong places. The other day, my teenage son lost his earbuds. For 2 days, we couldn't find them. Now, to his defense, he does have ADHD, so sometimes him remembering what he ate for breakfast is a challenge. But earbuds are expensive, so my husband and I joined the search. We looked everywhere, under the couch, inside the couch, on top of the couch. We have 4 boys, so it's not pretty. We saw things in the couch that no human should ever have to see. We searched for hours. And sometimes I feel like we treat calling the same way. We search, and we search. What's my purpose? What's my calling? What was I born to do? What's my destiny? What career am I supposed to have? And purpose becomes this exhausting search for the one extraordinary thing we're supposed to accomplish. Yes, we eventually found the AirPods in the one place we hadn't even considered looking. And it makes me wonder, what if your calling isn't something you have to find? What if you've already been given one? What if the purpose of your life isn't to find the right job, to build the right platform, or to accomplish something extraordinary? What if our deepest calling is much simpler and much harder? To love. I was 21 when I first began to understand this. I was halfway through my psychology degree when one morning I walked late into chapel at my university. The gym was packed, every seat was taken. My only option was to sit on the floor, right in the middle of everybody. That wasn't really my vibe. I was more of a sideline girl. I liked the shadows, but the speaker that morning was Tony Campolo, a sociologist, an activist, a preacher. He yelled, he spit when he talked, and he was madly in love with God. And for 20 minutes, it felt like he was talking directly to me. I had spent years wondering what I was supposed to do with my life, as if God had sent me on some kind of scavenger hunt. And suddenly I realized the answer had been there all along. Jesus was once asked, what was the greatest commandment? His answer, love God with everything you have and love your neighbor as yourself. Micah 6:8 says, act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. Sitting on the floor, it clicked. I was called to love, not someday, not when I found the perfect career, not when I had money, not when I had a platform, now. And not just me, all of us. Ordinary people are called to an extraordinary love. That morning, Tony mentioned a ministry looking for college students to spend the summer serving children in Camden. I wanted to go immediately, but then I realized I was broke. And I mean broke. I had grown up in an immigrant family. Our family had declared bankruptcy years earlier. I had to put myself through college. I needed every dollar. I needed every penny, not just the dollar. But somehow, through a crazy God story, I went. And then I went back for the next summer. We didn't have air conditioning. We slept on the floor on mattresses. We ate peanut butter jelly sandwiches for lunch every single day. We were students, college students, who would come from all over the world to come to Camden, to give, to serve, to help. But what I didn't realize was how much I would receive. The children and families of Camden became my teachers, my community, my family. One evening after a long day, I sat on a cracked sidewalk beside a little boy who was using his finger to trace in the dirt. He was telling me how he was playing a game to distract himself from the gunshots. Sitting there, I knew I couldn't fix this. I didn't have enough money. I didn't have enough power. I didn't have enough experience. But I could sit beside him. I could listen. I could look him in the eyes. I could let him know, you matter. I see you. I see you. It doesn't take much to love. Instead of focusing on what we don't have, we can give what we do have. Maybe that's what Micah 6:8 looks like. Justice, mercy, humility, love on display. 8 years later, at 29, I would learn it again. My husband and I were living in Jersey. I had just finished my master's at Rutgers University, and we were about to move back to Washington State. Our apartment was packed, our tickets to Europe were purchased, suitcases were sitting on the floor. We'd been married for 5 years, we had no children, and honestly, we were pretty happy about that. Then on one Tuesday night, while we were watching Friends, the phone rang. A friend told us about a woman who was about to give birth, and she was interested in adoption, and she wanted to meet us. 5 days later, at 5 o'clock in the morning, my husband and I were standing in Walmart evaluating diapers. I knew nothing about diapers. Apparently, there are different kinds, and apparently people have very different opinions about them. Then we got to formula. Who knew there were so many different types of formulas? Bottles, pacifiers, car seats, tiny clothes, and baby blanket. I had gone from researching Europe to researching newborn products in approximately 72 hours. Last week, we were packing for Europe. That morning, we were packing for parenthood. 5 days earlier, I didn't even know this baby existed, and now I was about to meet her. I walked into that hospital room. Eventually, I asked her birth mom, can I hold her? She said yes, and I picked her up, and my heart followed. For the next 10 hours, she barely left my arms. At the end of the day, her birth mom looked at us with tears in her eyes and said, will you be her parents? We said yes. Purpose clicked into place in that moment, not as a title to earn, but as a way of living. I had found my calling. My calling had interrupted me, and this time, calling had a face, and she needed diapers. Sometimes the point isn't to be ready, it's to be available. We weren't searching for her. She simply showed up through another crazy God story, and we said yes to loving the little human right in front of us. Love was the invitation. Love is always the invitation. Years later, it would be tested in ways I could never have imagined. We were in the process of adopting a little boy when I received a phone call from the adoption agency. I was sitting on the floor again, but this time in my closet, lights off. The woman on the call was crying. So was I. She told me, it's back. The little boy we were adopting had cancer. And my immediate response was, no, we can't do that. By then, we already had 7 children. I was a trauma counselor. I knew enough to understand what this could mean. Chemotherapy, hospital stays, medical bills, scans, pain. What if we brought him home and he became blind? What if we brought him home and he died? My husband and I cried. We talked and we agreed. We couldn't do this. Surely God meant him for someone else. Surely there was someone who was stronger, someone with more capacity, someone who could handle this. We asked the adoption agency for the day to pray. It happened to be spring break, so I loaded our 7 into our 9-passenger Suburban, and we tried to have the day we had planned. We went to an aquarium, and throughout the day, one by one, I pulled my kids, and I asked them hypothetical questions. What if your brother becomes blind? What if his cancer comes back? And one by one, without hesitation, they all said the same thing. We'll figure it out. Their answers undid me. These weren't kids who believed life always worked out neatly. They knew pain. And still their instinct wasn't to protect themselves, it was to make room. They didn't need guarantees. They never asked for them. In their hearts, he was already their brother. And I realized I had spent the entire day trying to figure out my calling, and my children were already living it. I stepped outside the aquarium and I called my husband, and before I could say anything, he said, I feel like he's already our son. And everything became clear. We weren't choosing cancer, we were choosing him. The fear didn't disappear, the questions didn't disappear, and cancer eventually took our son's sight. But it didn't take his life. Love doesn't guarantee an easy story, but it changes the question. Instead of, can I handle everything that might happen? The question becomes, who is in front of me? And how am I being invited to love? Which brings me back to the airplane story. 21 years after sitting on the gym floor, after Camden, after Walmart, after adoption, after cancer, and after so many lessons about love, I was sitting beside a stranger thinking, please don't talk to me. Apparently, I was still learning. Because sometimes it's easier to imagine loving humanity than it is to love the human sitting right next to you. Earbuds in, eyes on the screen, glass of wine coming, and I felt that familiar nudge, the interruption. So I took my earbuds out and I listened. At first he talked about ordinary things. Then he started sharing real things, his story, his pain, his mistakes. And underneath his words were questions I recognized. Am I important? Does my life matter? Can I still be loved after everything I've done? I had asked those questions too. And somewhere between his words and the glow of the screen in front of me, I remembered this man wasn't an interruption to something more important. He was important. We talked, I listened. I found myself genuinely caring about him and his story. And for the record, I still got to watch my movie and have my glass of wine. Love didn't ruin my vacation. As the plane began to descend, our conversation turned to faith. I told him simply, I love God. There was a long pause, and then he looked at me. There were tears in his eyes, and he said, you're such a nice Christian. It felt like a gut punch, because he had no idea how close I had come to ignoring him. I hadn't done anything extraordinary. I didn't fix his life. I didn't have all the answers. I simply saw him. I listened to him. I cared about him. Before we landed, I told him, God loves you He always has and he always will. So are you looking for purpose? Because at 29, I wasn't even sure if I wanted kids. Today at 52, I run a lot. And I mean a lot. Not because I'm a mom to 2 kids. Not because I have 4. No, somewhere along the way, loving God and loving the people that he puts in front of me became my purpose. So take 2 and multiply it by 5. We have 10 kids. Apparently, I really committed to the research. People have said all kinds of things when they see our family. You remind me of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. You're like the United Nations, but my absolute favorite, you remind me of heaven. I love that because our family represents 6 nations, 8 cultures, and 6 racial groups. And none of that was my 29-year-old plan. It happened one opportunity at a time. Now, before you panic, I'm not trying to say you should have 10 kids. Some of you just broke into a sweat. I'm saying something much simpler and much bigger. Your purpose is to love the human being in front of you. That's it. The person across the street, the person across the room, the person across the dinner table, and sometimes across the world. Because here's what 52 years have taught me. There's no such thing as an ordinary human being. Every person you encounter is extraordinary, which means loving another human being is extraordinary. So maybe the extraordinary purpose you've been looking for, maybe it's a who. Are you looking for your purpose? You don't have to keep searching. Look around. There it is. Your calling, love. Your purpose, love. The person right in front of you, love them.